Chapter 692. Demonic Bull Burst Power. After realizing that the blood-severing ghost finger was no threat to him, Wei Longtao's body shook, and a dense blood qi surged out of his body, condensing into a demonic bull phantom. This demonic bull was emitting a wild power ripple, its muscles twisting, looking down on all living things. Explode! Wei Longtao punched at Yi Chen, the blood qi assaulting his dragon bone defense. What a condensed blood qi! My protective Zhen Yuan has almost been ignored. Yi Chen took 3 steps back, and a small crack appeared on the dragon bone defense. Blood qi was different from Zhen Yuan, it was a special source of power. Therefore, the protective Zhen Yuan could hardly defend against the impact of blood qi, and blood qi could not directly injure the body. It could only shake the foundation of blood qi. If Yi Chen did not have the dragon bone defense on his skin, or if his blood qi was insufficient, his blood qi might be washed away, and in serious cases, it might even collapse. This bone defense can defend against the impact of blood qi. Once was fine, but twice was the same. No matter how stupid Wei Longtao was, he could tell that the dragon bone defensive layer on Yi Chen's skin was not simple. It seemed to contain a special blood qi ripple, which could not only increase one's defense, but also counteract a portion of the blood qi's impact. The remaining blood qi's impact was naturally unable to shake Yi Chen's blood qi's foundation. So what? Watch me blow you up with one punch. Like a crazed killing demon, Wei Longtao's figure flickered as he punched out one after another. Each of his punches contained more than 1,000,000 gene of strength, possessing a frightening destructive power. Just think about it, when more than 1,000,000 gene of power was concentrated in a fist and then pushed at dozens of times the speed of sound, how powerful would it be? This was not the same level as 1,000,000 gene object charging at dozens of times the speed of sound. The larger the object, the larger the area of destruction. However, the power would be scattered, and the difference between the two would be more than 100 times. Therefore, 1,000,000 gene of power was not frightening. What was frightening was the instantaneous eruption of this power. Clang! 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 Yi Chen waved his long sword, and circles of dark golden ripples attacked Wei Longtao. Compared to the pure golden ripples, the power of these ripples was much weaker. However, they had the advantage in quantity. No matter how ferocious Wei Longtao's attacks were, they could not advance an inch. Damn it! Wei Longtao was like a boat sailing against the current, unable to do anything to Yi Chen. On the other hand, Yi Chen was at ease, occasionally launching a sneak attack. In close combat, if Yi Chen had only cultivated Zhen Yuan, perhaps he would have lost to Wei Longtao long ago. However, apart from cultivating Zhen Yuan, Yi Chen's physical strength wasn't bad either. It was 400,000 gene. 400,000 gene of physical strength combined with Zhen Yuan, destruction sword intent, and profound sword arts didn't lose to Wei Longtao in the slightest. Every time he slashed, he would be able to hit the opponent's weak point, achieving twice the result with half the effort. Therefore, if one didn't fight with Yi Chen, they wouldn't know why Yi Chen was so frightening. His true frightening aspect was that he had no weaknesses, which meant that his enemies couldn't find any. On the other hand, it was precisely because Yi Chen had no weaknesses that his enemies' weaknesses would be magnified in front of him. Wei Longtao's attacks seemed to be very fierce, but they were still somewhat rough and not meticulous enough. When encountering an opponent weaker than him, he would naturally be able to kill them with a single punch. However, when encountering an opponent like Yi Chen who had no weaknesses, he couldn't grasp the overall situation. It was clearly him who took the initiative to attack, but towards the end, he was on the defensive, guarding against Yi Chen's unpredictable sword arts. How is this possible? The more Wei Longtao fought, the more apprehensive he became. His battle power was continuously increasing, and he originally thought that he could suppress Yi Chen and cripple him. However, the situation was the same as before. No, it was still a bit lacking. While he was increasing his battle power, his opponent was also increasing his battle power. Moreover, his opponent could use every bit of his strength appropriately, without any wastage or lack of strength. My strength is 800,000 gene, and my demonic bull mountain crushing art has also been cultivated to the second realm, allowing me to erupt with a strength of 1,400,000 gene. If it were someone else with similar strength, they would have long since been unable to hold on. Why is he able to hold on and even suppress me? Even if Wei Longtao was the Azure Dragon Hall leader with tyrannical strength, he couldn't understand the difference between him and Yi Chen. He felt that his battle power was a bit stronger than the latter. Although Yi Chen's destruction sword intent was powerful, his cultivation base was only at the peak of mid-sea of Soul Realm, and his spirit body had even reached the fourth step. It should be known that the third step spirit body was already the peak for Sea of Soul Realm experts. The fourth step spirit body was the body of a king, and could contain even more strength. Its pure defense was extremely frightening, and he wouldn't be afraid of the rebound force in a head-on clash. It doesn't matter. With demonic bull mountain crushing art cultivated to the second realm, I can barely use demonic bull mountain crushing fist. This fist can increase my strength to 1,600,000 gene. With an increase of 200,000 gene, I can absolutely crush him. His blood qi surged as Wei Longtao prepared a huge killing move. On the opposite side, Yi Chen was also considering how to defeat Wei Longtao. If Wei Longtao mainly cultivated Jin Yuan, he wouldn't have to go through so much trouble. As long as he used Yellow Dragon sealing art at close range, he would be able to restrict the opponent's Jin Yuan. Unfortunately, Wei Longtao mainly cultivated strength, and Yellow Dragon sealing art couldn't restrict him. Yi Chen didn't have the confidence to use Golden Hurricane, but Wei Longtao definitely had other powerful killing moves. Not to mention, Wei Longtao had a fourth-step spirit body, and his defense was ridiculously powerful. Forget it, I've underestimated the strength of peak body refiners. Actually, Yi Chen couldn't be blamed for underestimating Wei Longtao. The main reason was that he hadn't encountered many body refiners. Lin Tian could be considered one, but Yi Chen's strength had risen too quickly, and he had quickly surpassed the other. Therefore, his understanding of body refiners wasn't deep. As for himself, he could only be considered half-baked. Yi Chen, take my fist. Accumulating his strength to the limit, Wei Longtao's body emitted an intense red light, and his entire body seemed like a blood-red sun. Rumble. Taking a step forward, Wei Longtao punched out. His blood qi surged, and the demonic bull's image suddenly shrunk, converging on his right arm. With its head in front and tail in the back, it raised its head and roared. Its eyes were like copper bells. Without any hesitation, the demonic bull's image separated from Wei Longtao's fist and charged toward the nearby Yi Chen with its horns. Hall leader Wei has used a supreme killing move. The spectators in the distance held their breaths, their eyes unblinking. On the opposite side, Yi Chen's blue robes fluttered in the wind, and his long hair fluttered like swords. Because of his grave and stern expression, his eyes were extremely sharp and narrow. The cold light inside seemed to have solidified, as if there was a lump of cold qi that couldn't be concealed. Golden Hurricane. Taking a step forward, Yi Chen held the Thunder Disaster Sword with both hands and unleashed a supreme profound sword move with a mountain-splitting force. Huff! A beam of dark golden ripple shot out at the speed of light. The demonic bull's image and the beam of ripple collided. There was no sound, no shockwave. The world seemed to have lost its sound, leaving only a blood-red and dark golden light sphere. Inside the sphere, the demonic bull's image and the dark golden ripple had yet to dissipate. Rumble. With a world-shattering sound, the demonic bull's image exploded with a bang, and the dark golden ripple was reduced to a finger-thick beam. It pierced through the fragments of the demonic bull's image and struck Wei Longtao's chest. Its speed was so fast that the latter didn't even have time to react. It's actually Vice Hall leader Ye's killing move that's even stronger. The spectators cried out in surprise. Senior brother Yi is going to win. Chen Yusen revealed a happy expression. Compared to Wei Longtao, she was more inclined toward Yi Chen. After all, Yi Chen had already convinced her. Even Hall leader Wei isn't Yi Chen's opponent. Xing Meiyan admittedly admired Yi Chen, but Wei Longtao's decades of prestige was too deep-rooted. If it were her, she wouldn't even have the confidence to resist. Hee, seems like we don't have to make a move. Wu Chuan and Su Danian heaved a sigh of relief. Puff. Wei Longtao flew back in shock. Although the armor on his chest was a semi-extreme grade armor, the concentrated energy still made him unable to control his body and blood qi. His ribs creaked as he felt an unbearable pain for the first time. Yi Chen faintly creased his brows. He wasn't as optimistic as the spectators. Sure enough, after flying back a dozen li, Wei Longtao stopped his momentum. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, looking completely fine. It was as if he had only suffered a minor injury that didn't affect his condition or battle power. On the contrary, it made his aura even more valiant and frightening. Yi Chen, I have to admit that apart from Great Elder, you're the first Sea of Soul Master I've acknowledged. Unfortunately, this is still not enough, far from enough. My strength is not something you can imagine. This bit of offensive power can't injure me. Wei Longtao's expression turned tranquil. Lightly letting out a breath, Yi Chen sheathed the Thunder Disaster Sword and said indifferently, I have no choice but to admit that I've underestimated you. Your strength is higher than any Sea of Soul Master I've encountered. Indeed, this bit of offensive power can't do anything to you. Since you know, then surrender yourself to us. Admit your mistake in front of me, and I might forgive you and give you a dignified ending. Faintly shaking his head, Yi Chen said, No, you don't understand my meaning. I still haven't displayed my true strength, although I really don't want to. What? This wasn't even Deputy Ye's true strength? What kind of joke is this? Yeah. Hall leader Wei has already gone all out. Only his defense is a bit stronger. Deputy Yi can't do anything to him. Do you think Deputy Yi is just trying to scare Hall leader Wei? I don't know. The battle between Wei Longtao and Yi Chen could be said to be an intense battle beyond their level. It had already left them dumbstruck, and they didn't even have the qualifications to look up to it. But now, Yi Chen was telling them that this wasn't his true strength. They couldn't accept it, feeling that it was too outrageous. Wu Chuan and Su Danian exchanged glances, feeling a bit frightened. As for Chen Yusen and Xing Meiyan, they were already dumbstruck. Humph. Wei Longtao coldly snorted and sneered, even now, you still haven't given up. I really don't know whether to call you arrogant or ignorant. Whether I am or not, you'll know very soon. Left with no choice, Yi Chen decided to expose his defensive sword art. Wei Longtao's strength was beyond his imagination, and the extraordinary strength of a body-refining expert was also beyond his expectations. Chapter 693. Make your move. I'll make you feel despair. Wei Longtao was extremely confident in his defense. He simply didn't think that Yi Chen could break through his defense and heavily injure him. Of course, he didn't dare to be careless. His muscles swelled, and every inch of his body contained a terrifying energy, causing his skin to be covered in a layer of blood-colored light. On the other side, Yi Chen was standing several miles away. He didn't draw his sword, nor did he take any stance. However, his gaze gradually sharpened as it locked onto Wei Longtao's aura. As the night wind whistled, the spectators held their breaths as they stared at Yi Chen. They wanted to see Yi Chen's true strength. Kill. Two beams of cold light flashed through his eyes. Yi Chen pointed out with his right hand, and the gold sword on his back automatically took out of its scabbard. It shot out at a speed that was beyond the soul power's perception. Because of its unbelievably fast speed, everyone's eyes were still focused on Yi Chen, waiting for him to perform his ace attack. Danger! Wei Longtao's scalp went numb. Then, as if he had been electrocuted, the numbness spread from his head to his feet, and then back to his head. This was no longer his consciousness warning him of danger, but his body's instinct. In fact, he didn't even have time to think in this short period of time. Clang! On his chest, magma-like sparks splashed, and the strong smell of iron could not be dispersed even by the wind. In the next moment, Wei Longtao spurted out a large amount of blood and was instantly sent flying dozens of li away like he was riding on a cloud. Along the way, blood flowed out of his eyes, nose, and ears, wriggling like little snakes. Hall leader Wei lost. The spectators were a little dazed. They had been waiting for Yi Chen to make his move. Unfortunately, from start to end, they only saw Yi Chen's right hand move, and Hall leader Wei was sent flying with sparks of magma splashing out from his chest. Hiss! After a moment of daze, the spectators sucked in a cold breath. A move that could be seen clearly wasn't scary. What was scary was that they couldn't see anything. Return to the sheath. Yi Chen changed his mind, and the gold sword flew back into the scabbard on Yi Chen's back, its sharpness dimmed. This is the sword that defeated Hall head Wei. Only then did everyone understand that Yi Chen's killing move was a flying sword. As for whether or not it was thrown by hand, they were a little confused because they didn't have the time to pay attention at that time. Sword Sex Yi Chen is worthy of his title. Wu Chuan and Su Danian were filled with admiration. When they first learned that Yi Chen was a grandmaster of the sword, they did not take it too seriously. But now, they understood that there was probably no one among the grandmasters of the sword who could be a match for Yi Chen. Yi Chen was the new grandmaster of the sword. Even in the eastern shallow sea, there was not a single grandmaster of the sword who could contend against him. Hall Master Wei, who has shaken the blood battle ocean for decades, has actually been defeated. This Vice Hall Master Yi is truly heaven-defying. I can't believe it. Me too. I thought he was just bragging. However, we still don't know why Hall Master Wei fought with Vice Hall Master Yi. Everyone discussed spiritedly, sighing endlessly. After heavily injuring Wei Longtao, Yi Chen extended his hand, and a powerful suction force pulled the opponent back, causing him to spurt out another mouthful of blood. Wei Longtao, what else do you have to say? Wei Longtao no longer had the strength to fight. He didn't even have the strength to lift a finger. He looked at Yi Chen with resentment. So what if you defeated me? Do you think the elders of Elder Association will believe an outsider like you and forcefully convict me? Yi Chen, today's humiliation will be repaid in the future. I, Wei Longtao, will not rest until you are dead. You should save these words for the elders of Elder Association. As for whom they choose to believe, that's their business. Grabbing Wei Longtao, Yi Chen flew toward the transfer palace hall. This matter was urgent, so he couldn't rush to Dragon God's celestial palace. Once Yi Chen left, Chen Yusen and Xing Meiyan looked at each other in dismay. Yi Chen's domineeringness had shaken them. The majestic Azure Dragon Hall Master still couldn't escape the fate of being carried away. Yi Chen was the first, and perhaps the last. Dragon God Celestial Palace, Transfer Palace Hall, carrying Wei Longtao, Yi Chen appeared outside the transfer stone gate. Dragon God Envoy. Inside the Transfer Palace Hall were 4 attendants. Yi Chen said, inform all the elders to go to Elder Hall. Yes. Before leaving, the 4 attendants shot a glance at Wei Longtao. Their expressions were a bit strange, but they didn't dare to ask too much. Their figures flickered, and they each separated. In Elder Hall, elders rushed over one after another. However, when they saw Wei Longtao being escorted by Yi Chen, they were somewhat dumbstruck. Not to mention how Yi Chen had captured Wei Longtao, just what crime Wei Longtao had committed was extremely puzzling. In a short while, the 3rd elder, 2nd elder, and great elder all arrived. After all, they were the 3 great elders, and their ability to keep their cool was quite profound. Apart from a bit of surprise, they didn't reveal too much of an expression. Clearing his throat, the great elder asked, "Dragon God Envoy, what's going on?" Yi Chen narrated the matter of Yao Feng being a spy and how Wei Longtao had killed him in great detail. Then, he spoke of the reason why he suspected Wei Longtao, without any embellishment. Wei Longtao raised his head and coldly said, "Do you believe me or him?" This. Quite a few elders hesitated. In truth, although Wei Longtao had killed Yao Feng a bit impulsively and also a bit strange, he was still the Azure Dragon Hall Lord, a person with great authority and status only below the great elder. Capturing him just like that was truly a bit. Some people even thought of themselves. Yi Chen even dared to capture Wei Longtao. If there came a day when he suspected them, would he also capture them without any regard for the rules? Of course, since Yi Chen was the Dragon God Envoy, they couldn't say anything on the surface. Although Elder Hall was the place where decisions were made, and all matters were decided by them, their authority wasn't the greatest. Above them, there were still the left and right protectors who had always been hiding in the shadows. Hall Lord Wei, if you're not guilty, no one will do anything to you. Don't worry. An elder who was on good terms with Wei Longtao comforted him, and quickly glanced at Yi Chen. That's right, Hall Lord Wei, don't be impatient. Vice Hall Lord Yi only suspects you. You were a bit impulsive in killing Yao Feng. Elder Yu, who was sitting next to him, transmitted his voice to Yi Chen, Dragon God Envoy, you were a bit impulsive this time. Wei Longtao is the Azure Dragon Hall Lord after all, and his connections aren't small. Most importantly, there isn't enough evidence. Moreover, I'm sure that many elders will be afraid of you because of this matter and gradually distance themselves from you. A cold smile appeared on Yi Chen's face, impulsive. I don't think so. If he's a spy, leaving him in the Azure Dragon Hall will only bring endless disasters. As for the Elder Hall members being afraid of me and distancing themselves from me. Elder Yu, honestly speaking, I'm not that infatuated with authority. I only believe in strength. With sufficient strength, even the heavens can be pierced. Authority is nothing more than fleeting clouds. Just one chapter today, and I can barely keep my eyes open. Tomorrow, I'll make up for it. Chapter 694. Hearing Yi Chen's words, Elder Yu smiled bitterly. Yi Chen was right. Power was not as important as strength. Unfortunately, knowing was one thing, and doing it was another. Moreover, not everyone was like Yi Chen, who had boundless potential. Their potential had already been exhausted, and they could only rely on the sect to obtain the resources they wanted and continue to slowly increase their strength. Everyone's circumstances are different, and so are their perspectives. It seems like I was too impulsive. Elder Yu thought that Yi Chen was a bit impulsive. However, after hearing Yi Chen's words, he felt that he was overthinking things. For Yi Chen to have his current accomplishments, how could he not know what was important and what was not? He had certainly thought things through. There were 24 elders in Elder Assembly. From Yi Chen's observation, he discovered that there were roughly 7 or 8 people who favored Wei Longtao. Although they had hidden it well, how could they escape Yi Chen's eyes? It was clear how powerful Wei Longtao's connections were. However, Yi Chen didn't care. Even if the Elder Assembly didn't think that Wei Longtao was guilty and could continue as the Azure Dragon Hall leader, it had nothing to do with him. He would only do what he had to do, and the result wouldn't affect him much. Of course, if the other party overestimated their capabilities and retaliated, he wouldn't swallow his anger. Yi Chen, you've done well. At this moment, Second Elder Silver Sword transmitted to Yi Chen. Yi Chen glanced at the second elder out of the corner of his eyes. The second elder didn't look at Yi Chen and continued, as far as we're concerned, as long as we have sufficient reason to suspect, we don't need proof. If we really needed proof to arrest someone, who knows how long it would take. Therefore, you can be at ease. Great Elder, and Third Elder all think that you've done the right thing. Since this Wei Long Tao is a suspect, we can't let him return to Azure Dragon Hall, nor can we let him leave the palace. However, in order to prevent others from thinking that you're fighting for power, you can't be the Azure Dragon Hall leader. If you have any opinion, you can speak directly. Second Elder is joking. I've never been interested in power. Yi Chen replied. Haha, that's good. You will know who the new Azure Dragon Hall Master is tomorrow. We will do our best to cooperate with you. Second Elder wasn't lying, nor was he afraid of Yi Chen's identity as a Dragon God envoy. He truly felt that Yi Chen's way of doing things was too good. He had helped Great Elder and him solve a huge problem. Catching a thief, catching a thief, catching a thief, catching a couple. But, if they couldn't be caught, wouldn't that mean that the mastermind would be free and unfettered for the rest of his life? Extraordinary times call for extraordinary actions. Currently, Dragon God Celestial Palace was in a crisis, and the best way to deal with spies was to catch all the suspicious ones. Even the Azure Dragon Hall leader was no exception. Cough, cough. At this time, the First Elder cleared his throat and asked Wei Long Tao, Hall Master Wei, this isn't a question of who to believe. Let me ask you, were you really impulsive when you killed Yao Yifeng back then? Not bad. Wei Long Tao nodded coldly. You've always been calm. No matter how calm one is, one can still get angry. Without a doubt, Yao Yifeng made me very angry. Because of him, many brothers of my Dragon God Celestial Palace have died. Alright, if there's no problem, the Azure Dragon Hall leader position is still yours. But, before that, you'll have to undergo a series of investigations. I hope you can understand. Great Elder was, after all, the First Elder. Dealing with this kind of thorny problem was easy for him. From his tone, he didn't side with either Yi Chen or Wei Long Tao. On the surface, he was comforting Wei Long Tao and didn't reprimand him. However, since he didn't let Wei Long Tao go, it was equivalent to giving Yi Chen enough respect. Hearing these words, Wei Long Tao's complexion turned unsightly. In the end, he still had to undergo investigations. In other words, Great Elder had chosen to believe Yi Chen. Great Elder, this doesn't seem appropriate. Wei Long Tao didn't say anything. Instead, an elder who had a good relationship with Wei Long Tao stood out. He was the 8th-ranked Elder Lu. Second Elder said with a frown, Elder Lu, how is it inappropriate? I agree with Great Elder's decision. I also agree. Elder Lu, I know you don't believe that Hall Leader Wei is guilty. We don't believe it either, but an investigation is necessary. Therefore, I agree with Great Elder's decision. Me too. Of the 24 elders, 16 agreed with Great Elder's decision. Even if the remaining 8 wanted to speak up for Wei Long Tao, it was meaningless. In the Elders' Council, the minority followed the majority. Smiling bitterly, Elder Lu glanced at Wei Long Tao helplessly and took a step back, sighing, since everyone agrees, this Lu will obey. That's right. Investigating Hall Leader Wei isn't targeting him. When the truth comes to light, Hall Leader Wei will still be the Azure Dragon Hall leader. Third Elder said with a beaming smile. Turning his head, Great Elder looked at Yi Chen, Dragon God Envoy, I'll leave the Azure Dragon Hall's matters to you. Tomorrow, we'll send an expert to the Azure Dragon Hall to temporarily take over the Hall leader's position. I hope you all can get along well and work together to resist the 4 opposing factions. Don't worry, this is my duty. Yi Chen nodded. Good, you go back first. If there's anything, I'll send someone to inform you. At this time, it was already the second watch period, and the night was as cold as water. Great Elder was clear that the Azure Dragon Hall still had the task of transporting resources, and Yi Chen couldn't be missed. Farewell. Yi Chen glanced at Wei Long Tao and left the Elder's Hall. Watching Yi Chen's back disappear into the night, Wei Long Tao's eyes flashed with a murderous cold light. When Yi Chen returned to Azure Dragon Island, Su Danian and Wu Chuan were both waiting for him. "Vice Hall Leader Yi, how is it?" Su Danian asked. Yi Chen said, "Wei Longtao is under investigation. Tomorrow, someone will come to Azure Dragon Island to temporarily take over the Azure Dragon Hall Leader's position." Fortunately. Su Danian and Wu Chuan glanced at each other and let out a sigh of relief. If Wei Longtao continued to be the Azure Dragon Hall Leader, the first to feel uncomfortable would definitely be the two of them. After all, they didn't have Yi Chen's strength, nor did they have Yi Chen's confidence. Thirdly, they didn't have enough support. They were just Vice Hall Leaders under the jurisdiction of the Azure Dragon Hall. "Vice Hall Leader Yi, what about today's resource transportation task? The enemy already knows where we are going and the number of our people." Wu Chuan asked. A cold light flashed in Yi Chen's eyes. "Follow the original plan. Azure Spirit Island, a resource island close to the core of Blood Battle Ocean. Because this island had an ordinary upper-grade spirit vein, the natural yuan qi here was terrifyingly dense. Almost every breath here was equivalent to a mortal realm warrior's 15 minutes of breathing. Living here for a long time, one would be immune to all diseases, and the body would be strong. If one gave birth here, the baby would definitely have a good foundation for martial arts." On Azure Spirit Island, the miners were working hard as usual. However, it was hard for outsiders to know that last night, a large group of people had come to Azure Spirit Island and were hiding nearby. "You three, don't worry. I've brought 1,500 people from the Sky Eagle cult. Even if we can't take them down, we won't be defeated by them. Once you surround them from the back, killing them will be as easy as killing dogs." The hall leader of the Sky Eagle cult, the hook-nosed middle-aged man, said. "I hope so." Whirlwind Gates Wind Hall leader Heilingji said. "Alright, there's no time to lose. My water wave sect will go first. Brother Zhou, I'll leave the task of attracting the enemy to you." The green-robed old man waved his hand, and more than 1,000 people of Water Wave sect flew southwest. "Farewell. You must succeed." The black-robed man and the Whirlwind Gates Hall leader Heilingji headed south and southeast respectively, leaving only the Sky Eagle cult's people behind. Retracting his gaze, the hook-nosed middle-aged man said loudly, "Brothers of Wind Hall, it's time to get rich. Half of the enemy's resources and wealth will belong to us, and we'll also get half of the contribution points. This is not something that happens often. It's our luck to run into them. Hall leader, don't worry. Who knows, our Sky Eagle cult might be able to get rid of them and take all the resources and wealth for ourselves." The treacherous fatty beside the hook-nosed middle-aged man said confidently. "Right, kill all the enemies and take all the resources for ourselves." According to the usual practice, only 90% of the resources would go to the headquarters, and the remaining 10% would be distributed accordingly. Therefore, everyone's enthusiasm was high, and no one was afraid of death. Even if they couldn't take down the enemy, as long as they could delay them, it would be fine. 1,500 people were not to be trifled with. Even if the enemy had 2,000 people, they wouldn't be able to do anything to them in a short time. "Let's go." The hook-nosed middle-aged man revealed a satisfied expression after seeing everyone's high morale. He waved his hand and led the group toward Azure Spirit Island. Soon, everyone arrived 2,000 li south of Azure Spirit Island. "Alright, everyone, split into 3 groups and wait." This time, it was different from the past. Previously, ambushes were the main method, but this time, they would kill as soon as they saw the enemy. There was no need for ambushes. Therefore, they only needed to wait for Yi Chen's group to arrive before they started killing. 15 minutes passed. 30 minutes passed. They are here. There are quite a lot of people. A bloodthirsty look flashed through the hook-nosed middle-aged man's eyes. In his sight, there were about 1,100 people rushing toward them. The 3 people in the lead were Yi Chen, Su Danian, and Wuchuan, the 3 deputy leaders. Since you are here, then don't leave. The hook-nosed middle-aged man let out a sigh of relief. There were only 1,100 enemies, which was 400 less than them. This was a huge advantage. You are wrong. Yi Chen and the other 2 looked calm. Arrogant. You won't even know how you die later. The hook-nosed middle-aged man raised his right hand and was about to give the order. On the other side, Yi Chen also raised his hand and yelled, "All of you, come out." His voice was mighty, and with the help of Jin Yuan, it spread out dozens of times faster than the speed of sound. In an instant, it spread out hundreds of li, kill. 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 From the north, east, and west, more than 1,000 people charged over from each direction. The people in the north were dressed in black, and they were from the Black Dragon Hall. The people in the east were dressed in red, and they were from the Red Dragon Hall. The people in the west were dressed in white, and they were from the White Dragon Hall. In addition, the leader of the White Dragon Hall was the White Dragon Hall leader, Mo Feng. Chapter 695. How is this possible? The middle-aged man was dumbstruck, his face aghast. No matter how stupid he was, he knew that he had been ambushed. Up until now, it had always been them ambushing Dragon God Celestial Palace's people. He had never thought that one day, they would also be ambushed. Bastard! That guy actually betrayed us and provided false information. As the hall leader of Sky Eagle Cult, he naturally knew that they had spies in Azure Dragon Hall. Therefore, his first thought was that they had been betrayed. Break out with all our strength. 1,500 against 5,000. How could the middle-aged man have any other thoughts? The only thought in his mind was to run away, as many as possible. Hall leader, which direction do we go? The treacherous fatty hurriedly asked in a panic. This way. The middle-aged man chose Yi Chen's direction. The other 3 directions had at least 1,300 people, and the most was 1,500 and 600. Meanwhile, Yi Chen's side only had 1,100 people, a few hundred less. With their strength of 1,500 people, they should have a high chance of breaking through. Charge! Raising his hand, the middle-aged man led his people to the right. He was not stupid enough to fight against Yi Chen head-on. The most important thing at the moment was to escape the encirclement. Kill! Yi Chen stood on the golden dragon chariot, while Su Danian and Wuchuan stood on the black chariot. With the 2 chariots as the arrowhead, more than 1,100 people were like 2 long dragons, advancing side by side, slanting toward the Sky Eagle Cult's troops. When the distance was only 30 li, Yi Chen and the rest took the initiative to launch their attacks. One attack after another ruthlessly fell on the Sky Eagle Cult's troops like a torrential storm. Defend! The Sky Eagle Cult's people joined hands to form a thick Jin Yuan barrier. This Jin Yuan barrier contained the power of 1,500 people. Its defense was so strong that even if several half-step kings attacked together, they wouldn't be able to break it. Yi Chen and the rest were, after all, far away. Thus, their attacks were weakened by a lot. They only left a few tiny ripples on the barrier, like the ripples of a drizzle falling on a lake. Vice Palace Leader Su, Vice Palace Leader Wu, they're currently defending with all their might. They don't have the time to attack. The 2 of you will block their path at full speed. We'll suppress them from the left and right. Yi Chen said decisively to Su Danian and Wuchuan. All right. Su Danian and Wuchuan led 600 to 700 people and separated from the main force. 2 long dragons, one on the left and one on the right, attacked the Sky Eagle Cult's people. It was fine if the other side only defended, but if they wanted to attack, they would definitely withdraw their defense. In that case, a round of attacks would be able to wipe out half of them. Faster, faster. The hook-nosed middle-aged man was anxious. If the other side didn't split up, he could easily escape the encirclement by sacrificing a small portion of his forces. In this situation where he fought and retreated, when the reinforcements from the other three forces were no longer a problem, it would be their turn to fiercely counterattack. However, Yi Chen's troops took advantage of the moment when they were defending with all their might to split into two groups. One group attacked them to slow them down, while the other group temporarily gave up on attacking and rushed to the front at full speed to block their path. Left side, defend with all your might. The others, attack. Amidst the chaos, the hook-nosed middle-aged man didn't lose his cool. He ordered the people on the left side to defend with all their might against Yi Chen, while the people facing Su Danian and Wu Chuan gave up on defending and attacked with all their might. Although the speed of the 1,300 people was a lot slower, it was still majestic and unstoppable. Rumble. Like countless fireworks exploding, hundreds of attacks flew towards Su Danian and Wu Chuan's group. Su Danian and Wu Chuan didn't plan to fight back. Their goal was to stop the Sky Eagle cult's people. Therefore, their first thing to do was not to counterattack, but to stabilize their formation and erect their defense. Bastard! Seeing the round of attacks go to waste, the hook-nosed middle-aged man's heart sank again and again. The enemy had obviously planned ahead and considered all the possible problems. In other words, he was like a fish in a net. No matter how he struggled, it was useless. You guys are ruthless enough. Everyone, listen to my order, split into 13 groups. Staying together, they had high defense and attack power, but they would be easily suppressed. If they were scattered, many people would die instantly. However, judging from the current situation, it would be a fantasy if no one died. If they were scattered, one or two groups might be able to escape, but if they stayed together, everyone would die. Shwa 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 shwa, like a school of fish in the water, the Sky Eagle cult's people suddenly split into 13 groups, running through any gap they could find. The scene was extremely chaotic. Facing this kind of situation, Yi Chen didn't change at all. Wave after wave of attacks were thrown out, destroying one group after another. As for himself, he directly controlled the Golden Dragon chariot to attack the hook-nosed middle-aged man's group at the very front. His speed was more than twice as fast as the other party. Swoosh! The wind was biting cold. Yi Chen slashed out with his sword. The black sword chi was like a crack in the void, attacking the crowd from dozens of miles away. Swoosh! A large amount of blood rained down. This sword directly killed more than 100 people. Without any pause, Yi Chen slashed out again. A black thunderball streaked across the sky. Immediately, the other people on the Golden Dragon chariot also arrived at the best attacking distance. One after another, they all launched their strongest attacks. The mighty chi surged out like a tidal wave. With one round of attacks, the hook-nosed middle-aged man and his group were completely annihilated. One couldn't blame them for being weak. It could only be said that the Golden Dragon chariot had gathered the strongest forces, Yi Chen, Chen Yusen, Luo Yunsong, and Xing Meilian. Just Yi Chen alone could fight against half a group. If he couldn't kill the other party, then it would be strange. The other members of the Sky Eagle cult had the same fate as the hook-nosed middle-aged man. Although they had caused trouble for the people of the Azure Dragon Hall, they still couldn't break out of the encirclement. Out of the 13 groups, only 4 were left, with less than 400 people. When the people of the Black Dragon Hall, White Dragon Hall, and Crimson Dragon Hall arrived, the 1,300 people of the Sky Eagle cult had already been annihilated. Of course, it couldn't be said that these 3 groups didn't play a role. If it weren't for them, the hook-nosed middle-aged man wouldn't have chosen to escape. Instead, he would have split up and fought with Yi Chen's group to the death. In that case, even if Yi Chen's group could kill them all, they would have to pay a big price. Yi Chen, long time no see. Mo Feng and Yi Chen could be considered to be very close. Yi Chen smiled and said, "Thank you all for coming to help. Deputy Yi, what are you saying? The Sky Eagle cult is our common enemy. This is our duty. The other two hall leaders didn't dare to treat Yi Chen as an ordinary deputy, so they replied politely. Yi Chen said, if nothing unexpected happens, the number of people from the Water Wave sect, Black King Gate, and Whirlwind Gate won't be small. What awaits us is a tough battle. Who's afraid of who? We're not here for sightseeing. No matter what, we have to kill a bunch of people. The leader of the Crimson Dragon Hall was a bearded man with a rare bandit aura. However, in terms of individual strength, he was on par with the leader of the Black Dragon Hall, second only to the leader of the Azure Dragon Hall, Wei Longtao. The leader of the Black Dragon Hall was a cold middle-aged man with a heavy killing intent. He opened his mouth and said, let this place become the nightmare of the four forces. Left Hall leader is right. Let this place become the nightmare of the four forces. A cold light flickered in Mo Feng's eyes as well. 3 hall masters and 1 deputy. The aura of the 4 standing together was simply too powerful, instantly becoming the center of attention. Although Yi Chen had only been a deputy for a short time, his personal accomplishments were simply too frightening. His aura was not below that of the 3 in front of him, and it seemed as if he was the leader. The 4 gathered for a while before separating. Just like before, the Black Dragon Hall, Crimson Dragon Hall, and White Dragon Hall spread out, staying 100 li away from Yi Chen's group. This distance was neither too far nor too close, just outside the range of Sea of Soul Realm experts' soul power detection. They could quickly rush over to help. They were waiting for the other 3 forces to arrive. The first to arrive were the people of the Whirlwind Gate. Something's wrong. Where are the people of the Sky Eagle cult? The leader of the Yin Wind Hall, He Lingji, creased his brows as his speed involuntarily slowed down. The people of the Sky Eagle cult have already been repelled by us. Seems like you guys will also follow in their footsteps. From afar, Yi Chen's voice was heard. He didn't say that the people of the Sky Eagle cult had been completely annihilated. Instead, he said that they had repelled the enemy to avoid raising their guard. After all, being completely annihilated and repelled were 2 different concepts. Follow in their footsteps? Humph. So what if you've repelled them? This place will become your burial ground. He Lingji didn't doubt him. In his opinion, Yi Chen must have brought a lot of people, perhaps even more than 2,000. After repelling the people of the Sky Eagle cult, their losses were not low either, leaving only 1,100 people. On his side, there were more than 1,600 people. Adding the people of the Black King Gate and Water Wave sect, who were also about to arrive, there was no doubt about it. Kill. With an explanation, He Lingji let out a sigh of relief. With a wave of his hand, he led his people toward Yi Chen's group. Defend with all your strength. Yi Chen didn't prepare to attack. Instead, he organized his people to raise a Jin Yuan barrier. Boom 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 boom, a large number of attacks landed on the barrier, forcing Yi Chen's group to retreat several dozen li. Kill. 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 Right at this moment, He Lingji's left, right, and right rear, 3 groups of people charged over. Because the distance between them was only 100 li, and their attention had been diverted by Yi Chen's group, by the time they recovered, it was already too late to escape. You dare lie to me? Are the people of the Sky Eagle cult completely annihilated? He Lingji's anger flared up, his eyes spewing fire. It's too late for you to know. Yi Chen declined to comment. Even if I die, I'll drag you guys down with me. He Lingji knew that he couldn't escape, so he led his people and recklessly charged toward Yi Chen, shortening the distance between them. Counterattack. Yi Chen wasn't afraid of the enemy before, but to prevent them from escaping. That was why he retreated step by step, pulling the enemy into the best ambush spot. Withdrawing the Jin Yuan barrier, thousands of attacks blasted out. A large number of attacks collided, forming a death zone that extended several dozen li. At this moment, the people of the Black Dragon Hall, Red Dragon Hall, and White Dragon Hall were already 30 li away. Rumble. The three parties each sent out a round of attacks. Immediately, miserable screams resounded. Hundreds of Whirlwind Gates experts died on the spot. After 2 rounds of attacks, the people of the Whirlwind Gate followed the footsteps of the Sky Eagle cult's people, completely annihilated. Great! The Red Dragon Hall leader had never killed so happily before. His eyes were bloodshot, and his killing intent soared. Chapter 696. Deputy Yi is truly a godly person. When Palace Master was here, although the 4 forces didn't dare to press too hard, the overall situation in Blood Battle Ocean was still a notch above Dragon God Celestial Palace. After Palace Master went into seclusion, our Dragon God Celestial Palace didn't have a big victory. Occasionally, we would turn the tables, but it didn't matter. Yeah, it's only been an hour, and we've already killed more than 2,000 people. This is definitely a big victory. Previously, Yi Chen was only famous in Azure Dragon Hall. The other 3 halls didn't know much about Yi Chen, thinking that it was a blind cat bumping into a dead mouse. But now, the experts of the 3 halls were filled with reverence for Yi Chen. In their eyes, Yi Chen wasn't the Azure Dragon Hall leader, but he was even more powerful. Yi Chen, with you here, the situation in Blood Battle Ocean is under our control. Mo Feng sighed endlessly. Who could have expected that a single Yi Chen could flip the situation in Blood Battle Ocean upside down? If he didn't see it with his own eyes, he would have doubted it. I only have some special abilities. Ordinary Sea of Soul Realm experts could only cover 100 li, while Yi Chen could cover 500 li. This was a huge advantage that couldn't be crossed. If he didn't have soul power, Yi Chen wouldn't be able to take the initiative and toy with the enemy. Special abilities are also a part of your strength. You're more suited for battle than us. The Black Dragon Hall leader said. Yi Chen faintly smiled, not saying anything. Black King Gate and Water Wave Sex experts had better luck. En route, they bumped into each other. Their numbers reached more than 3,000, and they were majestically rushing over. What welcomed them were 5,000 people, an increase of 2,000. Retreat. The black-robed leader's expression changed drastically as he roared. Chase. With a wave of his hand, Yi Chen and the other 3 palaces converged and chased after them. The reason why they did not surround them was because they did not have enough people. Normally, it would only make sense to surround them if they had 3 times more people than the enemies. Otherwise, it would give the enemies a chance to take them out one by one. After all, this was not a normal army, but an army made up of astral-reaching realm warriors and above. Both sides, one in front and one behind, madly chased after each other. However, in terms of average strength, Dragon God Celestial Palace was undoubtedly superior to the other 4 forces. Their overall speed was much higher. Roughly 2 hours later, the distance between the 2 sides had shrunk to 30 li, reaching the optimal attacking distance. Without the need for Yi Chen's order, everyone unleashed their ultimate moves, attacking the experts of Black King Gate and Water Wave Sect. Rumble. The experts of Black King Gate and Water Wave Sect had no choice but to join hands to set up a defense. But as a result, their speed gradually slowed down, and it became even more difficult to get rid of Yi Chen and the rest. 5,000 people launched a joint attack, shaking the enemy camp's Jin Yuan barrier to the point where it was on the verge of collapse. Ripples spread out in all directions, and from time to time, there would be people spitting out blood as they were injured. Elder Zhao, what should we do? The black-robed leader of Black King Gate looked at the green-robed leader of Water Wave Sect. The green-robed old man's face was extremely unsightly as he said word by word, if this goes on, our casualties will only increase. Once it accumulates to a certain extent, we won't even have the qualifications to fight to the death with them. At present, the best method is to counterattack and fight to the death with them. Can we fight? Even if we can't, we still have to fight. Our numbers aren't small, 3,200 people, while the other side has 5,000. It's not like we don't have the power to fight. Alright, let's fight. The black-robed man was not an indecisive person. Being forced into desperate straits, a cruel glint flickered in his eyes, as if he had turned from a human into a ferocious beast. All-out counterattack. Finally, the experts of Black King Gate and Water Wave sect no longer blindly fled. Instead, they turned around, preparing to fight to the death with Yi Chen and the rest. Kill. There was no need for words between the two sides. The moment they met, they would kill. Thousands of attacks blasted together, turning the area between the two sides into a starry river of death. Anyone who entered would instantly be blasted into dregs, leaving not even bones behind. At this moment, individual battle strength was no longer important. Even Yi Chen couldn't contend against thousands of people. The moment he was alone, he would be killed in an instant. Of course, if he wholeheartedly wanted to escape, no matter how many people there were, they wouldn't be able to stop Yi Chen. Using the defensive sword art, Yi Chen's speed was already not inferior to the attack speed of ordinary Sea of Soul Realm experts. He could completely shake off the attacks. Peng 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 peng. The battle of thousands of people was too spectacular, too frightening. Both sides no longer had any other thoughts. The only thought on their minds was to use their best moves. As for anything else, they couldn't be bothered to think about it. This battle lasted for an hour. Finally, the experts of Black King Gate and Water Wave sect began to show signs of decline. The reason they were able to resist until now was because the attacks of Yi Chen and the rest were too concentrated. A lot of them were wasted. After all, Jin Yuan could be fused together for a short period of time, but killing moves and the like were very hard to fuse. The moment they came into contact, they would cancel each other out, turning into pure Jin Yuan. However, an advantage was an advantage. As time passed, Yi Chen's side maintained their peak condition. On the other hand, the other side, due to going all out, started to show signs of exhaustion. This was especially true for the astral-reaching experts. Because they had swallowed a large amount of pellets, the purity of their Jin Yuan kept dropping, greatly reducing their attack power. On the other hand, on Yi Chen's side, the frequency of their astral-reaching experts taking pellets was less than half of the other side. After all, they had the advantage in numbers, so they didn't need to put in so much effort. Rumble. Another quarter of an hour passed, and the experts of Black King Gate and Water Wave sect could no longer maintain the situation. A gap was blasted open on the left side, and hundreds of people turned into a part of the Jin Yuan, turning into ashes. Only bits and pieces of storage rings were left behind, falling into the ocean. Everyone, hold on. Killing one is breaking even, killing two is killing one. The green-robed old man attacked while boosting the morale. Hall leader is right. Since we're all going to die, we might as well drag one down with us. Without a doubt, desperate situations could make people go crazy and hysterical. This kind of hysteria in an army composed of ordinary people would only be a bad thing. However, in a sect war, it could often erupt with frightening might. Even the weakest among them was early astral reaching realm. Their potential was far greater than ordinary people. In a state of selflessness, they could even burn their life force. Swoosh! The attacks were concentrated on purpose. Yi Chen's side also lost dozens of people. Of course, they were already prepared. Their numbers reached several thousand, so it would be impossible for them not to lose one person. If both sides had 10 times more people, with each side having several tens of thousands of people, Yi Chen would at most have the confidence to defeat the other side, but it would be impossible for him to completely annihilate the other side. This was the unknown brought by quantity. Unfortunately, the eruption of potential had a limit, and it couldn't be continued forever. Moreover, Yi Chen's side didn't dare to be negligent. Each and every one of them had their nerves stretched to the limit. Their offensive power increased by 100 feet, once again suppressing the other side and increasing the number of kills to 700. As their numbers decreased, it was like a vicious cycle. The number of casualties kept increasing, and the more casualties there were, the more they couldn't hold on. It was like a rolling snowball, getting bigger and bigger, becoming more and more ridiculous. They were only a step away from being completely routed. We can't hold on any longer. Find an opportunity and run. The green-robed old man knew that the defeat was already decided, so he transmitted to the black-robed leader of Black King Gate. I know. The black-robed man gritted his teeth. When the casualties of Black King Gate and Water Wave sect reached 2,000, dozens of figures suddenly separated from the group and flew towards the back. The two leading them were the green-robed old man and the black-robed man. You guys continue the attack, I'll chase. Yi Chen soared into the sky, and 5 sword lights appeared around his body. The sword lights were different from before, and they seemed to be moving backwards. With a swish, Yi Chen turned into a cyan sword light and disappeared in a flash. How can I be left out? The leader of the Red Dragon Hall led a dozen people and chased after Yi Chen. Soon after, the leader of the Black Dragon Hall and the leader of the White Dragon Hall, Mo Feng, also led a dozen people and soared into the sky. It didn't matter if they stayed or not. If 4,000 people couldn't even take down 1,000 enemies, then they might as well just smash their heads against the wall. In fact, the situation was even better than they had imagined. Seeing that their hall leaders had escaped, how could the experts of Black King Gate and Water Wave sect still have the mood to fight? They all scattered in all directions, thinking that they would have a chance to escape in the chaos. However, doing so would only make them die faster. A random wave of attacks would be enough to annihilate them one by one. Brother son, let's split up. The green-robed old man and the black-robed man split into 2 groups and fled. Yi Chen, who was chasing after them, gave up on the black-robed man and chased after the green-robed old man alone. The leader of the White Dragon Hall, Mo Feng, was afraid that something might happen to Yi Chen, so he also chased after the green-robed old man. As for the leaders of the Black Dragon Hall and the Red Dragon Hall, they chased after the black-robed man together. Although the sword light flying art was not as fast as the Imperial sword flying art, it was Yi Chen's special ability after all. With a flicker, he could cover several li. Soon, the distance between him and the green-robed old man was less than 50 li. Kid, you're courting death. The green-robed old man's eyes flickered with a green light. He suddenly turned around and led 20 people toward Yi Chen. He didn't believe that Yi Chen alone could fight against 20 of them. It should be known that his strength was also very high, and he was absolutely a hall leader level expert. Even if he was alone, he might not be afraid of Yi Chen. 20 people charged forward aggressively like tigers and wolves. The distance between the two sides continued to shrink. 50 li, 40 li, 35 li, not good. Mo Feng's complexion changed as he hurriedly yelled to the people behind him, hurry up and support Deputy Yi. Yes. The people Mo Feng brought were all great experts with late Sea of Soul Realm cultivation base. Each of them had experienced hundreds of battles and could hold their own. Seeing that Yi Chen was in danger, they secretly increased their speed, surpassing their own limits. Facing 20 people, Yi Chen was not afraid at all. Holding the Thunder Disaster sword in his right hand, he raised it high above his head. The tip of the sword emitted a dark golden radiance. Go to hell. When the distance between them was only 30 li, the green-robed old man and the 20 people beside him simultaneously roused their Jin Yuan, preparing to unleash their ace attacks. Unfortunately, even though they were fast, Yi Chen was even faster. Gold Ripple. The Thunder Disaster sword descended, and a dark golden ripple light beam shot out. Wherever it went, the sky darkened, and a dark golden trace streaked across. Poochie, 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 without any suspense, the 20 people, including the green-robed old man, were turned into ashes by this sword attack. Upper-grade artifacts and storage rings flew everywhere, flickering with light. At this point, this operation was nearing completion. Under the leadership of Yi Chen, the total losses of the four opposing forces had reached a frightening level. Moreover, Yi Chen's battle record was also at a frightening level. In the history of the Dragon God Celestial Palace, perhaps no one could compete with him in battle record. Chapter 697. Hiss. Mo Feng had long since known that Yi Chen's strength was at the inhuman level. He had sparred with Yi Chen many times in South Rudra region. However, he didn't expect that Yi Chen had already reached the level where he could instantly kill dozens of people. It should be known that his opponents were not ordinary Sea of Soul Realm experts, but late Sea of Soul Realm experts. Especially the green-robed old man. As the leader of Water Wave sect, his strength could only be higher than Mo Feng's. However, in front of Yi Chen, he was no different from an ordinary Sea of Soul Realm expert. I'm afraid this guy is only one step away from Half-Step King Realm. Mo Feng said inwardly. In terms of profound, will, and battle experience, Half-Step Kings were not much more powerful than Peak Masters. Their strength lay in their Jin Yuan. Life and Death Realm Jin Yuan was called King Jin Yuan, while Half-Step King Jin Yuan was called Half-Step King Jin Yuan. Half-Step King Jin Yuan was no longer a liquid Jin Yuan, but a solid one. It could easily condense into a Jin Yuan crystal. Even if this Jin Yuan crystal lost control, it wouldn't dissipate, and would continue to exist. Most importantly, Jin Yuan crystals could be provided to others for cultivation, and were classified as half-step extreme grade energy crystals. It was said that King Jin Yuan could even condense into all kinds of gems, diamonds, and even some special crystals. Moreover, the hardness of the things condensed by King Jin Yuan was far beyond ordinary. For example, a Jin Yuan gem was at least 10 times harder than a gem of the same grade. Putting away the storage ring and some damaged upper-grade artifacts, Yi Chen turned around and said, "Big brother Mo, you go back and take charge of the situation. I'll go check out the situation on the other side." The leader of Black King's sect was not much weaker than the leaders of Red Dragon Hall and Black Dragon Hall. If he had some life-saving secret arts, he might be able to escape from the hands of the two. Yi Chen had to go and take a look. "Alright, I don't think I'll be needed." Mo Feng shook his head with a bitter smile and led his people back the way they came. Waiting until Mo Feng and the others were far away, the gold sword on Yi Chen's back automatically took out of its scabbard, turning into a beam of gold light that appeared right in front of him. Stepping on it, Yi Chen pushed his Jin Yuan and soul power. Shoo! The gold sword carried Yi Chen and shot out with dozens of times the speed of sound, leaving a clear sword mark in the air that did not disappear for a long time. "Huh, just the two of you want to keep me here." The black-robed man was fighting the Red Dragon Hall Master and the Black Dragon Hall Master alone. Although he was at an absolute disadvantage, he was still undefeated. It wasn't because he was stronger than the other two. In fact, the three of them were about the same. However, the black-robed man had an extremely powerful water ultimacy defensive martial art. This defensive martial art was like a ball of pale green water that wrapped around the black-robed man. When the attacks of the Red Dragon Hall Master and the Black Dragon Hall Master landed on it, they were either weakened or deflected. They only had 30 to 40% of their power left. "This guy is so powerful. Watch my Scarlet Python Silk Palm." The Red Dragon Hall Master was a hot-tempered man. After attacking for a long time without success, his eyes opened wide like two bronze bells. With a roar, he threw out a palm attack. 4 to 46 flame pythons coiled around the black-robed man's body, strangling him. Break! The black-robed old man's face turned red as he threw out a palm attack, shattering 9 flame pythons in an instant. Extermination space-shattering cut. The Black Dragon Hall Master's weapon was a semi-extreme grade black blade. As he waved it out, a blade light with extermination chi slashed at the green water around the black-robed man's body. Although the blade did not cut through the green water, it still left a gap. Ha! The Crimson Dragon Hall Master and the Black Dragon Hall Master had a tacit understanding. The moment the saber beam slashed a hole in the green wave, they immediately controlled a flaming python to enter. However, the black-robed man was no pushover either. The green wave condensed into a solid state, trapping the flaming python inside and preventing it from entering. Unfortunately, the Red Dragon Hall Master's goal had been achieved. Explode! The Red Dragon Hall Master roared, and the flame python immediately exploded, blowing up the green water and splashing water everywhere. Half of the black-robed man's body was scorched black, and he had suffered serious internal injuries. The two of you will die in my hands one day. The black-robed man groaned as blood flowed out of his 7 orifices, and his hair was disheveled. Let's talk about that after you leave this place alive. As the Red Dragon Hall Master spoke, the 6 flame pythons around the black-robed man also exploded. The surging flames collided and formed a huge flaming mushroom cloud. Water transformation escape. At this moment, the black-robed man's figure turned into a green stream, escaping into the distance. His speed was so fast that it left no trace. Not good. The Red Dragon Hall Master and the Black Dragon Hall Master's expressions changed as they chased after him. The black-robed man seemed to have used a secret art that overdrafted his potential. His speed became faster and faster, leaving the 2 dozens of Li behind. It looked like they would not be able to catch up. Abruptly, rip! A black sword light flickered, and the green stream was cut in 2. The black-robed man did not even have the time to let out a scream before he was dismembered. The one who killed the black-robed man was none other than Yi Chen. He had sensed the black-robed man from several hundred li away. Switching from Imperial Sword Flight to Sword Light Flight art, he charged at the black-robed man at his highest speed and slashed at close range. Deputy Yi. The Red Dragon Hall Master heaved a sigh of relief. Are you two alright? The Red Dragon Hall Master smiled and said, what could happen to us? But, I didn't expect this guy to have so many life-saving methods. First, it was the green water wave, then the super-powerful water escape art. Although the black-robed man's battle strength was comparable to the 2, it would be difficult for the 2 to take him down even if they joined hands. Thinking about it, it made sense. Under normal circumstances, if one wanted to kill an expert of the same level, unless the opponent did not run away, it would require 3 people to have a chance. Not everyone was as all-round as Yi Chen. By the time the 3 returned to the battlefield, the battle had already ended. The troops of Black King Gate and Water Wave Sect had been completely annihilated, while Dragon God Celestial Palace's side had lost more than 200 people. In this battle, the 4 opposing forces had lost 6,000 troops. It had to be said that it was extremely bitter, and they would probably not be able to recover for a long time. After returning to the Azure Dragon Hall, this great news spread at an astonishing speed, and Yi Chen once again became the focal point. Many people called Yi Chen the war god of Dragon God Celestial Palace. With him, the army of Dragon God Celestial Palace would be invincible. Yi Chen had made such a huge contribution, so the rewards were naturally not lacking. Although most of the rewards were useless to him, Yi Chen had Yi family and Sky Cloud sect. The more rewards, the better. After all, although his status was high, Dragon God Celestial Palace was not founded by him. He could at most take some things that were useful to him. He couldn't very well use his position to take away a large amount of resources for Yi family and Sky Cloud sect. Apart from the rewards, Dragon God Celestial Palace also awarded Yi Chen a Dragon God Medal. This medal was the highest honor of an individual in Dragon God Celestial Palace. It was also a special artifact that could store a large amount of Zhen Yuan, roughly equivalent to a third of Yi Chen's Zhen Yuan. It was absolutely priceless. As for the others, apart from the rewards, they also received a medal. For example, Lin Songhai, Chen Yusen, and Luo Yunsong, as disciples of Dragon God Celestial Palace, each received an Iron Blood Medal, which was ranked third. The other 3 Hall Masters received Battle Dragon Medal, which was similar to the Iron Blood Medal. In short, the number of medals awarded this time was much more than in the past 10 years, because the achievements of the past 10 years couldn't compare to this one. Time flew by in a leisurely manner. On the boundless blood battle ocean, the flames of war could be seen everywhere. The battle had already entered its final stage. Dark Devour. Beside Yi Chen, a purple-robed masked woman formed a seal with both hands. Her movements were so fast that it was dazzling to the eyes. Outside her body, waves of deep dark power rippled out. Pop! Near the enemy's leader, a collapsing and rotating dark sphere appeared. This dark sphere was like a black hole, emitting a frightening gravitational force. It immediately swallowed this powerful enemy, leaving no bones behind. Soon after, the dark sphere swelled a few times and twisted, seeming as if it was about to collapse. Then, the storage ring and the upper-grade artifact were spat out. Powerful. Yi Chen praised. He could tell that this dark devourer of Murong Qingcheng was created by imitating a black hole. It had a devouring effect, and would only dissipate after devouring a sufficient amount of mass. In other words, one couldn't avoid this killer move without paying a price. If one didn't have enough strength, they would only be devoured. The structure is still not too stable, unless I can see a real black hole. Murong Qingcheng blinked her eyes, somewhat dissatisfied. You can't become fat in one bite. Although we can't go to the starry sky, True Spirit Continent has some dangers similar to black holes. If there's an opportunity, we'll certainly see it. Time passed by in a flash. Half a month ago, Murong Qingcheng finally created her own dark profound martial skill, Dark Devour. Although this profound martial skill had yet to be perfected, its lethality wasn't weak. Even against experts of the same level, it would have a certain effect. Therefore, Murong Qingcheng temporarily put aside her bitter cultivation and came to Dragon God Celestial Palace. She had long since known that Yi Chen and Su Jing had a tacit understanding. This time, she had come to see Su Jing. Unfortunately, Su Jing had been in seclusion for many years, and no one knew what her seclusion signified. In short, Murong Qingcheng subconsciously believed that Su Jing was her greatest rival. Although she didn't really reject Su Jing, she always had a sense of crisis, and couldn't act as if nothing had happened. In this 1 year, Yi Chen had experienced dozens of battles, big and small. Every battle ended with victory. In these battles, the 4 opposing forces were on guard and began to be cautious. Therefore, although victory belonged to Yi Chen, the number of times he was completely annihilated was few and far between. The situation in Blood Battle Ocean had also gradually stabilized, with both sides restraining themselves and no longer acting unscrupulously. After such a long period of battle, Yi Chen felt somewhat bored. He had already thought of resigning from his position and returning to the continent. The current leader of Azure Dragon Hall was none other than the 18th Elder of the Elders Association, Elder Yu. He had been temporarily acting as the leader for more than a year. Although his strength was inferior to Wei Longtao's, and even inferior to the leaders of Black Dragon Hall, Red Dragon Hall, and White Dragon Hall, he wasn't weak either. He had a very close relationship with Yi Chen. The battles were simply too easy, and the enemies simply couldn't raise any waves. Murong Qingcheng said, "During your absence, the continent has experienced a storm. Right now, although the first rank is still yours, the following ranks have been occupied by other geniuses. Duguju is ranked 2nd, Dantai Mingyue is ranked 3rd, Bai Wuxia is 4th, Yan Fengfeng is 5th, Lu Xiaoyu is 8th, and Xia Hozuan is 9th. Situ Hao, who exchanged the defensive sword art with you, is full of momentum, surpassing Godly Shark Princess and Xiao Chuha who are not active on the continent. Bai Minghui is ranked 16th, and Chu Zhongtian is ranked 18th. Moreover, Duguju had once defeated an old monster who was equally famous as Sky Sword Master, Nirvana Blade Master. The change is indeed great. Yi Chen didn't feel surprised. For the older generation masters, a year's time couldn't make much progress. However, for the peak geniuses, it was the time for them to advance by leaps and bounds. He didn't doubt that he wouldn't be able to keep his first rank in the ranking. The competition was too intense. Chapter 698. As time passed, the frequency of battles in Blood Battle Ocean became lower and lower. In the past, there would be at least a dozen battles in a month. Now, one battle a month was already not bad. Both sides seemed to have reached a tacit understanding. When one side was transporting resources, the other side wouldn't ambush the other, and when the other side was transporting resources, the other side wouldn't ambush the other. Otherwise, they would have to fight for their lives. Clearly, neither side had made any preparations. Dragon God Celestial Palace was uncertain because Dragon King hadn't come out of seclusion. The four opposing forces were also apprehensive of Dragon King, afraid of going too far. Once Dragon King came out of seclusion, they would inevitably seek justice. Without battles, Yi Chen naturally didn't intend to stay. He had come to Dragon God Celestial Palace precisely to redeem the situation, and he had already accomplished more than he could. On this day, Yi Chen arrived at the headquarters of Dragon God Celestial Palace and resigned from the position of Azure Dragon Hall Deputy. Although the Elders of Elders Association were reluctant, they knew that they couldn't force him to stay. Moreover, Blood Battle Ocean was currently peaceful. Keeping Yi Chen here would only be a waste of time. Let's go. Inside the hall, Yi Chen and Murong Qingqing entered the conveyor gate. South Rudra Sect, Conveyor Chamber, Buzz. Two figures walked out of the conveyor gate. Yi Chen. Long Bai was waiting outside the conveyor gate. Upon seeing Yi Chen, her face revealed a faint smile. Sect Leader Long. Yi Chen cupped his fists. This time, it's all thanks to you. I didn't expect that you alone could reverse the situation in Blood Battle Ocean. Long Bai was in a good mood. It was no wonder that Yi Chen had resolved the crisis of Dragon God Celestial Palace. Back then, when Yi Chen had gone, she had never thought that Yi Chen would help Dragon God Celestial Palace suppress the four opposing forces. As long as they could maintain the situation, it would be fine. It could be said that Yi Chen's performance had far exceeded her expectations, frightening her. Yi Chen said, to help Dragon God Celestial Palace overcome this crisis, Yi Chen is very honored. Sect Leader Long, don't regard me as an outsider. Moreover, I'm also a member of Dragon God Celestial Palace. That's true. Long Bai smiled. Although Yi Chen had resigned from his position as the Azure Dragon Hall's Vice Hall Master, he was still the esteemed Dragon God Envoy. After chatting with Long Bai for a while, Yi Chen and Murong Qingqing returned to the Yi clan. In the past year, Yi Chen had come back 3 times. With the teleportation gate, it was very convenient. If it weren't for the fact that teleportation consumed a lot of top-grade spirit stones, Yi Chen could have come back once a day. After fighting for more than a year, Yi Chen was also a little tired. In the following week, he did not cultivate, nor did he think too much about things. Every day, he lived a leisurely life, chatting with his parents, playing with his younger brother and sister, or spending time with Murong Qingqing. During this period of time, Yi Chen had gone through the most important baptism of his life. One night, Yi Chen and Murong Qingqing joined together. That night, the two tossed and turned until the next morning. Murong Qingqing's body was extremely perfect, smooth like silk, tall and slender, neither too thin nor too voluptuous. Due to the 2 Sea of Soul Realm cultivation base, their endurance was astonishing. A night of absurdity had instead left them in high spirits. Vaguely, the two's temperament had somewhat changed. At least, on the next day, when Yi Tianhao and Shen Yuqing saw Yi Chen and Murong Qingqing, they faintly smiled, as if they knew something. Yi Chen was already 27 years old. This was the first time he had lost his virginity, so he was always a bit impulsive. Whenever he had the chance, he would make love to Murong Qingqing. Moreover, Murong Qingqing's charm was really huge. Due to the fact that she trained demon power, her demon body gave people a noble and alluring feeling, as if she was a combination of angel and demon. On the bed, Murong Qingqing was very proactive, which was completely different from her usual calmness. All in all, in this short period of time, the two enjoyed a life that could only be envied by lovebirds, and were extremely grateful. The morning air was fresh and moist, and the chirping of birds could be heard from outside. Opening his eyes, Yi Chen looked at Murong Qingqing lying beside him and revealed a trace of a smile. In his sight, Murong Qingqing's jade-like body was lying horizontally, only covered by a thin piece of silk. Her stunning curves could not be covered at all. Her perky buttocks were half covered, revealing a snow-white bulge. Her chest had an exaggerated curve, seeming to be even fuller than before. Under the silk, 2 protruding points could be seen. How many times did we do it yesterday? It should be 5 times. With a bitter smile, Yi Chen got off the bed naked and went to the bathroom to wash his body. After washing up, Murong Qingqing had already woken up. She stretched, and the silk on her body immediately slid down. Little vixen. Yi Chen walked over and kissed her. Murong Qingqing blinked her eyes, enjoying the kiss. After tossing and turning for a long time, Yi Chen finally walked out of the bedroom and arrived at the courtyard. This courtyard was one of the most luxurious courtyards of the Yi family. There was a forest, a lake, a garden, and even a rock garden, as well as a pavilion. It was like a small paradise. Sucking in a deep breath, Yi Chen arrived before the lake with his long sword. Chop! Grabbing the air with both hands, Yi Chen chopped down. Whoosh! The air surged, and a straight mark appeared on the lake. Strange. My Jin Yuan seems to have grown a lot. I'm about to break through to Late Sea of Soul Realm. Yi Chen could feel the surging Jin Yuan in his body like a torrential river. It was endless and filled with a kind of tension. Without thinking too much, Yi Chen calmed his mind and gradually entered a state of cultivation. Currently, other than the void-shattering finger, the golden ripple, the sword control art, and the blood-severing ghost finger, all of his other martial arts had long reached perfection. As for void-shattering finger, Yi Chen had already reached 90% completion more than a year ago. Although perfection was not that easy to reach, Yi Chen had a feeling that as long as there was an opportunity, he would be able to reach greater completion and reach 100% completion. On the other hand, the gold ripple was much more difficult. This was a high-rank profound martial art. After more than a year of bitter training and tempering, he had only managed to raise it from 30 to 40% to 40 to 50%. However, this was already very terrifying. In terms of power, it was close to the defensive sword technique, and was not much weaker than it. Yi Chen had always believed that exchanging the defensive sword art with Situ Hao was his greatest harvest. Currently, the defensive sword art was still at the peak of the second layer. However, be it speed or offense, it was not second place. It was definitely a killer move. Situ Hao being able to shine so brightly on the master's list was unknown to Yi Chen, but it was not important. Even if the latter were to be ranked second or even push him down, Yi Chen would not regret it. The latter was able to surpass him because of his talent. Without talent, even if the best resources were given to him, he would not be able to achieve much. At most, he would only be able to become a rare expert. Since the defensive sword art was powerful enough, Yi Chen would not look down on the blood-severing ghost finger. This finger art was too strange. As soon as the finger slashed out, a strange scene appeared. The white-robed departed soul's figure became increasingly clear. Once, Yi Chen even saw it smiling at him. He didn't know whether it was an illusion or not, because it was too real. It was hard to tell the difference. Perhaps Dragon King knew what was going on, but he was in seclusion. The peak of the second layer of the defensive sword art has stabilized enough. Now, I can attempt the third layer. The third realm would allow him to create Jin Yuan flying swords. With his soul power and sword intent, the power of one Jin Yuan flying sword would be able to instantly kill a top master level warrior. If he were to use 100 or even 1,000 swords at the same time, its power would be unimaginable. Of course, in the history, the highest power of Sea of Souls realm sword artists was 72 swords at the same time. Legend had it that someone had reached 81 swords at the same time, but no one knew if it was true or not. Southern Sector, Golden Sand Region. In a super luxurious restaurant, Chu Zhongtian and the geniuses of Golden Sand Region were drinking. Sitting next to Chu Zhongtian was his junior sister, Rakshasa. She had purple hair and purple eyes, looking extremely enchanting. She had a fiery figure and a bewitching appearance. Brother Chu, you are now the most famous figure in our southern sector. Allow me to offer you a toast. Clearly, the geniuses of Golden Sand Region all looked up to Chu Zhongtian. After all, Chu Zhongtian used to be a tycoon of southern sector. And now, Chu Zhongtian was already an expert of the master's ranking, ranked within the top 20. This glory was enough to shock the entire southern sector. Although Edict Prince and Thunder Princess were still dazzling, they paled in comparison to Chu Zhongtian. Because of his relationship with Chu Zhongtian's sect could be said to be unparalleled in the southern sector. There were many youngsters who joined the sect. No matter what, a 5th grade sect was still a 5th grade sect. It was a king sect, not something small sects could compare with. Chu Zhongtian's expression was indifferent, without any pretense. However, everyone was used to this side of Chu Zhongtian. If Chu Zhongtian spoke in a pleasant manner, it would be surprising. Eldest brother, let me pour you some wine. Rakshasa's name was Zhou Meiting, and she was Chu Zhongtian's second junior sister. The two had always had an ambiguous relationship. However, Zhou Meiting always thought that Chu Zhongtian was too tyrannical, changing women like changing clothes. Therefore, she didn't expose their relationship. However, as Chu Zhongtian established himself in the Sky Martial region, Zhou Meiting started to feel a sense of crisis. She took the initiative to maintain the relationship between the two. She believed that she would be able to tie down Chu Zhongtian's heart. Brother Chu, you are only at mid-Sea of Soul realm right now, but you are already ranked within the top 20. Once you reach late Sea of Soul realm, you will be invincible within the same generation. Brother Sun is right. Everyone praised Chu Zhongtian. Chu Zhongtian took over the wine cup from Zhou Meiting and drank it all, then said lightly, I have confidence in the others, but there is still Yi Chen in the southern sector. After all these years, Chu Zhongtian had met a lot of horrifying martial geniuses, such as the top 5 young warriors, the 2 top martial geniuses, Situ Hao and Bai Minghui. None of them were ordinary people. However, there was an image in Chu Zhongtian's mind. Behind those martial geniuses, there was a huge shadow. It was so huge that it almost covered up the whole sky, covering all of the martial geniuses in its shadow. No one could see his face clearly, only that sharp sword chi-like eyes. Chapter 699. Splitting Jin Yuan flying swords is even more difficult than I thought. Standing in front of the lake, Yi Chen pointed with his finger, and the gold sword came out of its scabbard on its own. The dense sword chi hovered above Yi Chen's head twice, and the gold sword suddenly trembled, splitting into 2 lifelike gold swords. These gold swords were imitated by Jin Yuan, and the 3 swords merged into one. One shouldn't look down on Jin Yuan flying swords, as it was not easy at all. The hardest part was to let nature take its course. If Yi Chen were to forcefully split the Jin Yuan flying swords, not to mention 3 swords, he could even launch 100 swords at the same time. Unfortunately, what was the use? The forcefully split Jin Yuan flying swords would only be equivalent to an ordinary Jin Yuan attack. Even if Yi Chen's sword intent was powerful, it wouldn't have much destructive power. After a period of cultivation, Yi Chen could only naturally split 2 Jin Yuan flying swords. The true Jin Yuan flying swords had to have at least a third of the original's power. Otherwise, it wouldn't be complete, and wouldn't have enough power. Go! 3 sword shadows shot out, slashing on a somewhat broken upper-grade shield. Puchi! 3 holes immediately appeared on the shield. The hole in the middle was extremely thin, as if it had been carefully polished. The holes on both sides were slightly twisted, and the iron skin was twisted. A strong smell of iron spread out, like sulfur or rotten eggs. This broken upper-grade shield was Yi Chen's spoils of war in Blood Battle Ocean. He had given the intact ones to the Dragon God's Celestial Palace, who then gave him sufficient rewards. As for the broken ones, Yi Chen kept a portion and gave the rest to the Dragon God's Celestial Palace as well. He discovered that using a broken upper-grade artifact to test the attacking power was extremely effective. After all, no matter how broken an upper-grade artifact was, it was still not something a mid-grade artifact could compare to. To destroy it was not something an ordinary Sea of Soul Master could do. It was the best tool for testing power. Not bad, about a third of the original's power. According to the size and shape of the sword holes, it wasn't hard for Yi Chen to judge the power of the Jin Yuan flying swords. Puchi! The Jin Yuan flying swords pierced through the broken upper-grade shield and dissipated in the next instant, turning into 2 wisps of green smoke. Only the golden sword was still as sharp as ever and was not damaged at all. Whoosh! Yi Chen pointed his finger and the golden sword returned to its scabbard. Yi Chen, Auntie is calling you for dinner. Not far away, Murong Qingcheng, who was dressed in a purple robe without a mask, walked over. A fragrant breeze filled the air. Okay, I'll be right there. Let me change first. Yi Chen kissed Murong Qingcheng, turned around, and walked back into the house. Splitting the true essence flying swords required a great deal of concentration, and Yi Chen's body began to sweat. Days passed by. Yi Chen was either cultivating or spending time with Murong Qingcheng. He had plenty of time. One day, a deacon from the pavilion of Luoyang City brought news. It turned out to be a letter from Yan Fengfeng, asking them to meet up in the Sky Martial region. Because of the long journey, she had given the letter to the #1 information organization in the world, the Knowledge Pavilion, which had stores all over the continent, making it very convenient. After reading the letter, Yi Chen said to Murong Qingcheng, "It has been a long time since I went to the Sky Martial region. Let's go tomorrow." For most of the martial geniuses, the Sky Martial region was a holy land. But, for Yi Chen, it did not have any special meaning. The higher he stood, the more indifferent he would feel. The journey was long, so there was no need to travel by himself. So, Yi Chen and Murong Qingcheng got on the flying puppet and flew at 10 times the speed of sound toward the Sky Martial region. In this world, normal people did not have much to do, going out early and returning late every day to make a living for their families. There were also rich young men who indulged in sensual pleasures. Along the way, Yi Chen did not let the flying puppet fly too high. They flew past one city after another, seeing a very familiar scene. If he did not have his soul traveling over and was still in that world, his life would probably be one of the people down there. But now, he did not have to worry about his life anymore. All he wanted was to reach the peak of the sword art and explore the mysteries of the world. Without realizing it, Yi Chen realized that he had already left the mortal world and reached a higher level. The people down there were just normal people in his eyes. Perhaps their lives would still be interesting, but what they wanted would be completely different. 1 month later, the two arrived at the Sky Martial region. The place where Yan Fengfeng had invited Yi Chen was in the Lotus City, one of the top 10 cities in the world. The whole city was blue and tall. From far away, Yi Chen could already see the tall buildings in the city. The tall ones were hundreds of meters tall, like towers, while the shorter ones were about the same. They seemed to be endless. Shoo! The flying puppet did not slow down at all, rushing into the city directly. The White Cloud restaurant was one of the top 2 restaurants in the city. Although it was luxurious, it was not extravagant. It was made of ancient cloud wood, and had 18 floors in total. Each floor was 20 meters tall, taking up a lot of space. Sitting on the 18th floor of the restaurant, the clouds in the sky seemed very close, as if they could touch them with their hands. Yi Chen. On the 18th floor, Yan Fengfeng saw Yi Chen and Murong Qingqing. Beside her were the disciples of the mysterious martial school and Hai Wuya. Putting away the flying puppet, Yi Chen and Murong Qingqing floated into the 18th floor of the restaurant. Long time no see. Yi Chen cupped his fists. Hai Wuya laughed, "You brat, I thought you had forgotten about us. It has been almost 2 years since we last met, right? This time, we have to drink to our heart's content." "All right." Yi Chen and Murong Qingqing sat down and poured themselves a cup of wine, drinking it in one gulp. "Great." Hai Wuya and Yan Fengfeng each drank a cup. "Senior Brother Yi." "Hello, Senior Brother Yi." The disciples of the mysterious martial school and Sky Ocean Martial School greeted Yi Chen one after another. For many of them, it was their first time seeing Yi Chen, so they were a bit reserved. Yi Chen chuckled, "Everyone, relax a bit." Hai Wuya said, "With you here, they won't be able to relax. Don't you think about your current status among the geniuses? But, you will get used to it. Don't mind it too much. Isn't this Sword Master Yi Chen?" So, Yan Fengfeng invited him. Each floor of the restaurant could hold hundreds of people, and those who could be on the 18th floor were either the upper echelons of the martial schools or the top geniuses. Many of them had seen Yi Chen before, and some of them could be considered famous figures in the Sky Martial region. But, the second they saw Yi Chen, they all started gossiping and discussing in low voices. Ever since Yi Chen got the title of Sword Master, he disappeared without a trace. A lot of people said that he was afraid that he could not bear the title. I wonder if those people would still dare to say such things in front of Yi Chen when he comes back. Of course not. They are only talking behind his back. That is true. There are not many who would dare to say it directly. There were a lot of people discussing in low voices, and some of them would look at Yi Chen from time to time. Within a year of Yi Chen's departure, the new ranking had also come out. Dugu Ju was at the forefront, ranked second. Dan Tai Mingyue shocked the whole crowd the moment she made her move, ranked third. Bai Wuxia had always been at the top level, ranked fourth. The top 20 were almost all occupied by all the top geniuses. The older generation masters were all giving up their positions. As for the first place, it was still Yi Chen. In this era where geniuses were emerging endlessly, Yi Chen was the only one who had been ranked first for 2 consecutive years. In the past, Yi Chen was also one of the many geniuses. But now, his fame had already spread throughout the continent. There were many people who had not seen Yi Chen before, but there were only a pitiful few who had not heard of Yi Chen. However, newborn calves were not afraid of tigers. There were some new geniuses who were not very sure of Yi Chen. They only saw how horrifying Dugu Ju was, how stunning Dan Tai Mingyue was, and how elegant Bai Wuxia was. As for Yi Chen, he would probably lose the first place sooner or later. After all, no one could guarantee that they would be in a period of rapid development for more than a year, improving by leaps and bounds. In a situation where there was not much difference, many things could be changed in 1 year, such as the change of the Grandmaster ranking. Sword Sex Yi Chen, interesting. There were 3 young men and women sitting at a table near the window. The man on the left had a majestic build. His arms were thicker than ordinary people's legs, and he had a heavy saber on his waist. His eyebrows were very thick and long, and his tiger-like eyes contained a terrifying energy. Next to the majestic young man sat a girl in colorful clothes. She had an exotic charm, big eyes, a high nose bridge, and plump lips. She looked very flirtatious, and her body was incomparably hot. Her skin was a light wheat color, and she looked very healthy. Opposite them was a young man. This person's hands were very long and slender, like bamboo joints. His appearance could not be said to be handsome, but it could not be said to be ugly either. His eyes were narrow and long, and the corners of his eyes were very sharp. At this moment, the corner of his mouth was slightly raised, and there was a trace of evil in it. The clothes of these three people did not fit in with the others, and they seemed to have come from very far away. Talking about the sword in front of Brother Lu is just asking to be humiliated. The girl in colorful clothes did not hide her voice at all. Yes. The majestic young man nodded. Who are you people? On a nearby table, a few geniuses who admired Yi Chen creased their brows and asked. We're from the West Ocean. The young man drank his wine without looking sideways. West Ocean. I don't care where you're from, but you'd better have some self-awareness. Yi Chen is not someone you can casually belittle. So what if I belittle him? The young man swirled the wine in his hand, and the sparkling wine swirled around. You're from the West Ocean, and you don't have any achievements on True Spirit Continent. What qualifications do you have to belittle him? The girl in colorful clothes said with a disdainful face, Do you know Lu Xiaoyu? Lu Xiaoyu? Of course I know him. What's the point of talking about him? Although Yi Chen, Du Guju, Dan Tai Mingyue, and Yan Fengfeng had become the top 5 young tycoons, pushing down Lu Xiaoyu and the rest, Lu Xiaoyu was once one of the top 5 young tycoons. No one knew what realm his strength had reached. Half a year ago, Lu Xiaoyu went to the West Ocean, but he couldn't even take 10 swords from Brother Lu. Your so-called sword master Yi Chen might not be that powerful. What? Lu Xiaoyu couldn't even take 10 swords from him, and that was half a year ago. Half a year ago, Lu Xiaoyu was certainly much more powerful than before, but even he couldn't take 10 swords from this young man. Who exactly was this person? Chapter 700. You're not bragging, are you? There's no proof. I don't believe that Lu Xiaoyu couldn't receive 10 sword strikes from him. The first reaction of the genius who spoke was disbelief, thinking that the other side was exaggerating the truth. For example, after exchanging 10 moves, one side felt that his sword art was slightly inferior and directly admitted defeat. This kind of situation was not unheard of. If it were a life and death battle, exchanging hundreds of moves wouldn't be a problem, but being unable to receive 10 sword strikes was a completely different concept. Bragging. Ask the people of the western regions and see if they've heard of the name West Ocean Sword Master Lu Wujian. The multicolor-robed woman snorted. West Ocean Sword Master was not called West Ocean Sword Master. Its actual meaning was the Sword Master of the West Ocean. If he left the continent, Yi Chen could also be called the continent's Sword Master. After all, Yi Chen's title was obtained on True Spirit Continent. Only on the continent would he be recognized, and vice versa. Clearly, everyone understood the meaning of West Ocean Sword Master's words. Each and every one of them sucked in a breath of cold air. What was going on? Usually, the 4 shallow oceans and True Spirit Continent didn't have the title of Sword Master. Who would have thought that after Yi Chen, another Lu Wujian would appear? One was the continent's Sword Master, and the other was West Ocean Sword Master. So he's also a Sword Master. No wonder he's not convinced of Yi Chen. Everyone suddenly understood. West Ocean Sword Master, Yi Chen, you've got an opponent now. Hai Wuya said to Yi Chen with a smile. What's so great about West Ocean Sword Master? Our continent is the Orthodox. A disciple of mysterious sect, who worshipped Yi Chen the most, said in a low voice. Junior brother Wang, don't gossip. Although Yan Fengfeng said so, a smile appeared on her face. Yes, senior sister. I won't say it, but everyone understands. The disciple chuckled. Yi Chen smiled faintly and said, having an opponent is a good thing. I'm just afraid that I won't be able to find an opponent even if I search the entire world. Although Yi Chen was not a life and death king yet, he had already reached a realm where it would be hard to find a worthy opponent in the Sea of Souls realm. Lu Wujian's appearance did not make him unhappy, but instead comforted him. Outside the continent, there were 4 shallow oceans, and beyond that, there was still the endless ocean. The number of experts in the world was like the carps in the river. He did not need to worry about not being able to find an opponent. Murong Qingqing knew Yi Chen better than anyone else. She knew that he was a genius swordsman who desired to fight wholeheartedly. She couldn't help but feel proud. This was her man. Under the table, a soft and delicate hand held Yi Chen's palm. The geniuses who had questioned the woman in the colorful dress and the other 2 were stunned speechless. Their opponents were not nameless figures, they were the masters of the West Ocean Sword Sect, and their status was equal to that of Yi Chen. In that case, it was possible that Lu Xiaoyu could not withstand 10 sword attacks from them. At least, there was a slight possibility. What's wrong? Not speaking. The multicolor-robed woman revealed a mocking expression. Humph. The genius sat back down. Looking at Yi Chen's position, the multicolor-robed woman slightly raised her head and arrogantly said, the title of Sword Sect is not something anyone can bear. If you're smart enough, you'd better give up the title of Sword Sect, lest you humiliate yourself. Naylan, since he can be called Sword Sect, he certainly has some skill. At the very least, he's much stronger than Lu Xiaoyu. You don't need to belittle him. The slender fingers of Lu Wujian didn't raise his head from start to finish, as if nobody could pique his interest. Brother Lu, I'm a straightforward person, and I say whatever I want to say. However, I don't think I'm wrong. Brother Gu, don't you agree? The multicolor-robed woman asked the majestic youth. Yes. The majestic youth nodded. Murong Qingqing was well aware that Yi Chen would either not retaliate, or once he did, it would be a thunderous blow. It was obvious that the multicolor-robed woman couldn't arouse his anger. After all, she could shut one person's mouth, but she couldn't shut the mouths of all the people in the world. If he became very angry when everyone said a few words about him, then his state of mind would be too poor, and he wouldn't be able to endure it. However, she was Yi Chen's woman, and the multicolor-robed woman was also a woman. Women naturally had to be dealt with by women. She couldn't tolerate a woman speaking ill of her man, so she immediately said mockingly, strength isn't determined by words. No matter how extravagant your words are, it's just a fantasy. Who are you? The multicolor-robed woman raised her eyebrows, and her tone was unfriendly. I'm his girlfriend. What's your relationship with the West Ocean Sword Sect? Murong Qingqing countered with a question. The multicolor-robed woman spoke for a long time, but she didn't continue. It was true that she admired Lu Wujian, but she didn't dare to say that she was Lu Wujian's girlfriend. Once she did, it would undoubtedly make him feel disgusted. After all, there were still a few people who were close to Lu Wujian. You're courting death. The multicolor-robed woman's face flushed, and she raised her arm. A red Jin Yuan whip condensed, and she lashed out at Murong Qingqing, who was several dozen meters away. Break! Murong Qingqing's finger was dyed black as she pointed at the tip of the Jin Yuan whip. Puff! The Jin Yuan whip exploded inch by inch, setting off a storm in the restaurant. It rushed out through the window like a beam of light leaking out. You've got some skill. Take my bloodthirsty triple kill. The complexion of the multicolor-robed woman changed, and her expression turned grave. She made a grabbing motion in the air, and the red Jin Yuan turned into a three-headed scarlet python. This Jin Yuan python was extremely strange. Its body was very short, but the neck connecting the three heads was very long, even longer than its body. It could instantly attack 3 distant targets. The 3-headed scarlet python flicked its tongue and pounced toward Murong Qingqing with a fiery intent. Darkness Sky Curtain. Murong Qingqing's right hand drew a half-circle in the void before her. Immediately, a layer of black barrier enveloped the area. As the black barrier formed, Yan Fengfeng and Hai Wuya were astonished to discover that they seemed to have been isolated from the outside world. What a powerful profound. Hai Wuya originally thought that although Murong Qingqing's strength was high, it couldn't be that high. But now, he discovered that he didn't even have the confidence to defeat Murong Qingqing. He bitterly smiled. Yi Chen was powerful, but his woman was also this powerful. How could he live? Only Yi Chen knew that Murong Qingqing's strength was not limited to just this. Not to mention Hai Wuya, even Yan Fengfeng might not be able to defeat Murong Qingqing. With the perfect demonic vessels and demonic power, she was almost equivalent to a human demon's. One could well imagine her battle strength. Pop 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 pop, the 3-headed python's attack landed on the black barrier, but it didn't cause a huge explosion. It only produced a slight explosion, as if the energy was absorbed by the barrier. Impossible. The multicolor-robed woman didn't expect Murong Qingqing's strength to be this high. You take my move as well. After dispersing the darkness sky curtain, Murong Qingqing once again pointed at the opponent. This time, it was the demonic finger. Even without the wings, it still had 50 to 60% of its might. Fire Crystal Shield. The multicolor-robed woman hurriedly raised both her hands in the void, condensing a red crystal-like Jin Yuan shield. The shield's surface was covered in complicated patterns, and one red light after another flowed out. Ping! Unfortunately, Murong Qingqing's demonic finger was a pure offensive martial skill without a trace of impurities. It easily broke through the fire crystal shield and was about to injure the multicolor-robed woman. Break! Right at this moment, Lu Wujian, who had remained calm and collected, made his move. Without even looking, he raised his left hand's sword fingers and shot out a white-colored sword qi, cutting apart the demonic finger's power. Go! The white sword qi was like a fish swimming in the water. It made a turn in the air and suddenly increased its speed, shooting toward Murong Qingqing's location. He wasn't targeting Murong Qingqing, but Yi Chen. If Yi Chen couldn't even take this move of his, then the title of Sword Master would be in vain, not worthy of his attention. The white sword qi was as fast as lightning. Murong Qingqing might be able to block it if she used her full strength. However, this was a restaurant, and everyone would hold back when fighting. If she couldn't control her power and destroyed the restaurant, then it would be equivalent to losing. Therefore, she didn't make a move, as she knew that Yi Chen was about to make his move. Similarly, the sword qi shot out by Yi Chen was thinner and sharper than the white sword qi. Like a paper knife, it followed the white sword qi's outline and cut it in half. The remaining power of the sword qi didn't dissipate and continued to counterattack. Good move. Lu Wujian, who was known as the West Ocean Sword Master, had a gleam in his eyes. He reached out and pinched Yi Chen's sword qi. The sword qi was still struggling like a slippery eel, but as Lu Wujian exerted a little force, the sword qi dissipated with a puff. As expected of the continent's sword master. You are qualified to be my opponent. However, just this bit of strength is only enough to pique my interest. We will meet again in the future. At that time, it won't be too late to fight. Lu Wujian stood up and said to the multicolor-robed woman and the majestic youth, let's go. Humph, count yourself lucky. The multicolor-robed woman glared at Murong Qingqing. When the three of them walked to the staircase, one of the geniuses couldn't help but say, why don't we fight now? Could it be that you're afraid and think that your current strength isn't enough? Lu Wujian said indifferently, I will represent my master to meet Sky Sword Master. When I defeat him, there will be plenty of opportunities. At that time, you can come and watch the battle. The location will be at your so-called Nine Dragon Lake. That place is quite interesting. Meet Sky Sword Master. The person who spoke was dumbstruck. This was a legendary sword artist of the older generation. Although he wasn't a sword master, many people believed that he had the strength of a sword master. When you see Sky Sword Master, send my regards. The battle a year ago made me very happy. Yi Chen's voice was transmitted. Send my regards. Lu Wujian's eyes narrowed. He didn't know Sky Sword Master's strength, but his master had once been defeated by him. Now, he had surpassed his master, and had long since surpassed his master. Therefore, he had come to defeat Sky Sword Master in his master's stead. From Yi Chen's tone, he had clearly fought with Sky Sword Master. As for who won and who lost, the answer was already clear. Interesting. Lu Wujian smiled and walked down the stairs. All of a sudden, a voice resounded, September 18th, 9 Dragon Lake. Let me see what geniuses of True Spirit Continent are there. The 18th of September was the date of the previous 9 Dragon Lake battles. Lu Wujian's intention was very clear. He wanted to defeat the numerous geniuses of True Spirit Continent in this meaningful place and spread the prestige of West Ocean Sword Sect. Wherever he went, there was no one who didn't submit. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.